Story 1. If you're an artist or craftsperson, seeing something you want and thinking, I can just make it myself and it will cost me much less, is the devil whispering sweet lies directly into the tender ear of your pride. If you don't already have nearly all of the necessary supplies on hand, it will cost you more to make it yourself. Story 2. Avoiding maintenance on things may seem cost-effective today, but eventually, it will have consequences. Story 3. Carrying a balance on a credit card is not necessary to build credit. Story 4. Buying inexpensive items is acceptable, but it's important to choose products of decent quality. This way, you won't need to replace them frequently. Story 5. Not working overtime or trying to stay below a certain income threshold due to taxes indicates a misunderstanding of how taxes function. Story 6. Buying items solely because they are on sale is not true savings. If you weren't planning to buy it at full price, then it is simply an expense. Story 7. Buying items at a sale price without knowing the average price is common. Stores often inflate prices artificially to lower them later and advertise products as being on sale. Story 8. Shopping based on monthly payments rather than total cost discounted to present value is most common with cars and houses. Story 9. Buying the smaller and cheaper packages of food at the grocery store often results in a higher cost per amount of food. It is better to purchase larger sizes and freeze some for later use. Story 10. As a tax accountant, it is important to maintain a separate bank account for your small business. The fees for this account will be less each year than the charges incurred from the extra work of trying to separate your personal expenses from your business expenses in the bank statements. Story 11. Coupons. I knew someone who drove all over the city to save money with coupons. The cost of gas was likely more than the savings, not to mention the depreciation on the car. Story 12. Sales. Oddly enough, I read something like, something at 30% off seems like a good deal until you realize you were convinced to spend 70% more than you normally planned. It's a small thing, but it made me more aware of my spending habits and just how much fear of missing out engineering exists. Story 13. Moving to a cheaper state does not save you money when your paycheck is smaller or other expenses are excessively high. Story 14. The type of deals that offer buy one, get one half off, or similar discounts incentivize consumers to purchase more by presenting it as a bonus. If you are intentionally buying in bulk, then it can be a good deal. However, if you enter a store intending to buy one box of cookies for $5 and encounter this kind of deal, you may end up purchasing a second box because it is discounted. For example, if buying 2 boxes costs $8 instead of $10, you might think you are saving money. In reality, you have spent $3 more than necessary on a second box that you did not intend to buy. This marketing strategy is pervasive throughout stores, especially in food sections. The brightly colored labels, bold letters, and emphasis on savings are all designed to encourage consumers to buy more than they actually need. Ultimately, the effectiveness of these deals depends on your specific goals and needs. While they may save you money in some cases, they could also lead to overspending. Story 15. Buy now, pay later debt for anything that isn't an appreciating asset or doesn't generate cash flow, such as a burrito, refrigerator, phone, or wedding. I interned at a buy now, pay later firm, and from firsthand experience, I can tell you it's a scam. Story 16. My in-laws would drive all over town chasing grocery sales. Milk is cheaper here, chicken is on sale there. Bread is buy one get one at this store. Even if you don't make additional impulse buys at each store, who wants to waste that much time, energy, gas, and mental bandwidth on groceries? It seemed like a strange obsession and was exhausting to just hear about. Just pick a store and be done with it. Change it weekly if you want to, but going to 5 different stores to meal plan is excessive. Story 17. Buying cheaply made or disposable items repeatedly and discarding them is not advisable. Instead, consider investing in high-quality products that can last for decades or even a lifetime. Story 18. A lot of price matching and shopping around ends up wasting more than it is worth. My dad read that driving slower can save gas money, so he once added an hour to his commute to save fuel. Even though that hour of his life was worth more than the savings, He had to take a longer route because you cannot drive under 60 miles per hour on the interstate. Story 19. Asking for pet health advice on Reddit. I mean, them dying because you asked Reddit instead of taking them to a veterinarian will spare you from all future veterinary bills, so I guess it does technically save you money. Story 20. The dollar store. You are paying more per item, but I understand its utility is to help when you cannot afford a full item or to buy in bulk. However, if you are not living paycheck to paycheck, it does not make sense to shop there. Story 21. Cutting corners on professional equipment can be costly. A few years ago, I purchased a microphone arm made in China from an online retailer. It cost about a quarter of what the original German model did. About 9 months later, it snapped, fell on my computer, and caused significant damage. A $100 item nearly cost me $4,000. I then bought the more expensive German model and haven't encountered any issues since. Story 22. Over the course of his life, my father has changed his home heating system numerous times. He went from electric baseboard heating to an electric furnace, then to a wood stove, followed by an oil stove, back to a wood stove, and now to a propane stove. Every single time, he tried to convince me he was saving 20% on his energy bill. It cost him so much money that he will never save enough to pay for just one system. Story 23. Timeshares. People think they are getting a great deal. They do not have to pay for hotels. It is a significant scam. Story 24. Car idling for 10 minutes to get gas that is cheaper by 3 cents than the other station across the street, while there is no line at the slightly more expensive station. Story 25. Not reading labels on the shelf in stores or the information on the labels can lead to confusion about what you're paying by volume. The larger box or bottle is not necessarily the cheapest, and you can compare brands this way as well. Additionally, consider sales like 2 for 1 or buy 1 get 1. A little math and time can lead to significant savings. Story 26. Some DIY home renovation tasks you've never done before. I wish I had taken a summer job as a teenager with a handyman to learn a lot of those skills. Story 27. Buying inexpensive tires often leads to faster wear and poor quality control, resulting in premature or uneven degradation. Story 28. Having a large gas tank is often discussed. Some people say, I can drive 400 miles on a tank and only refuel every 2 weeks. But they only get 15 miles per gallon. This approach saves time but does not save money compared to a more efficient car with better fuel economy. Story 29. Saving money, or more accurately, spending less on certain things. Let me elaborate. Actually, let Terry Pratchett elaborate. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vims reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vims always bought and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was, good boots lasted for years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that would still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Story 30. Shopping at thrift stores or discount stores often leads to overspending or purchasing items simply because they are on sale, even when they are not needed. This tendency is common among impulsive shoppers. Story 31. Your spouse and you may think it's great to have each other and double the income, but you can get caught up in a mortgage. With kids and vacation expenses, you may end up in debt in the long run. Story 32. Do you want to save money by purchasing fast, inexpensive fashion? That is a significant mistake. I used to do it, but I was always changing my clothes. Purchasing high-quality items may seem expensive initially, but it prevents overspending and frustration. Real savings involve long-term planning rather than temporary solutions. Story 33. Having a car payment and getting a new car every year is difficult to understand. While I can empathize with those who are struggling to make ends meet, I have always purchased my cars outright and kept them until they no longer function. I genuinely do not understand why anyone would choose differently. It seems like a significant waste of money. Story 34. It took me a while to realize that using the dishwasher saves me more money than washing dishes by hand. Story 35. Feeding your pets affordable pet food is important. While your cat may happily eat that $18 15-pound bag of corn-based kibble every day, you may end up paying much more in veterinary bills when their kidneys fail due to poor nutrition than you would have spent over time on higher quality food. Story 36. Probably Costco. You pay to buy in bulk to save, but end up purchasing items you don't want or need because you were tempted in the store. Story 37. The dollar store. Take diapers, for example. Yes, the pack is cheaper, but when I looked at my unit price, it was 39 cents per diaper, compared to the same brand at Walmart for 28 cents per diaper. Most dollar store name brands are this way. Story 38. Monthly payments can be appealing, especially when not everyone can pay a large amount up front. For example, braces seemed affordable with monthly payments, but ultimately, it ended up being more expensive than paying the full amount at once. I felt naive because, once I turned 18, many places offered monthly payment options, and I got excited. However, I realized later that it wasn't as beneficial as it seemed. Story 39. Going to multiple supermarkets every week to find the best deals instead of buying everything in one place can be counterproductive. Once you calculate the fuel costs for driving around, the 20 pence saved on that tin of beans is not really worth the hassle. Story 40. For about 80% of people, credit cards are used. You can save money with cash back if you pay it off every month, but the reality is that most people do not. Story 41. Borrowing money from your 401k means you will pay taxes twice on that amount. Once when you repay it and again when you withdraw it later in life. Story 42. Spending money on inexpensive shoes, particularly affordable work shoes. I used to tell my colleagues to remove work from the equation. Do you want to feel miserable and tired because you wear cheap shoes all day? Or do you want to feel like you can enjoy your time off because your feet feel great? Story 43. Buying more than needed of any item because it's cheaper per ounce often leads to excess waste. Most of the time, the surplus is thrown out. It is advisable to buy smaller sizes first and only purchase a larger size if the smaller one is used up in a reasonable amount of time. This applies to most consumables, including food, cleaning supplies, perfume, makeup, and soaps. Story 44. Seeing sales can create the perception that you need to make a purchase. In reality, you may not need the item, and you are only buying because there is a sale. There is always a sale. Story 45. Buying in bulk. People believe they are saving money by purchasing large quantities at a discount. However, if the items expire or go unused, it ultimately results in wasted money. Bulk buying only saves money when it involves items you consistently use, understand how long it takes to consume, and can store properly. Story 46. Stocking up during discounts and buying items you do not need because of discounts is just wasting money. Story 47. Paying too much attention to small expenses can leave you with nothing for the bigger ones. If you are preoccupied with small tasks and bringing coffee from home, and as a result, too busy to research and present why you deserve a raise, you are not being frugal. Story 48. Homeownership at a high interest rate. I have heard many people say they bought homes because they wanted to stop wasting money on rent, without realizing that over 90% of their mortgage payment for the first decade of ownership goes toward interest and property taxes. Story 49. Coupons for items you had no intention of buying. My mother filled several homes with food items she never used because she had a coupon or it was on sale. She never used any of it, but she couldn't get rid of it either. She is an extreme hoarder and ended up with a pantry moth infestation that she denied and brought from place to place. She would keep rotten meat in her car because she bought it on sale and then forgot about it, and her car was filled with so many other things she got a good deal on. Her refrigerator and freezer broke, and she kept bins of rotten meat in her living room because she couldn't handle the thought of throwing anything away. I digress. Coupons are my answer in short form. Story 50. Buying the 80/20 ground beef is cheaper, but most people are draining the 20% fat from it. While it costs more to buy the 97/3 ground beef up front, it's almost all meat, so you are not wasting 20% of it. Story 51. Russian proverb. A clever man buys once, A foolish man buys twice. First, you buy it because it is cheap. Then you buy a new one because it doesn't work. Story 52. Building a new house by themselves when they have never built one before and not hiring licensed contractors. Story 53. Doing your own nails can save money if you only want one color. However, you may end up spending more on a variety of nail dips because we all know one needs many different shades of pink. Story 54. Marriage, especially with the high divorce rates these days, has become a significant topic. It's telling when lawyers spend $25,000 to $50,000 on those large billboards. Story 55. Washing dishes by hand instead of using the dishwasher uses much more water, although you do need to pay for the dishwasher. Story 56. Coupons and lost leader items serve to attract you to the store. Once inside, you make purchases, resulting in a financial loss. This applies even to fast food drive-through coupons, where you end up spending money there instead of at another location. Story 57. Going out of your way to avoid tolls can result in spending more on gas than you would have spent on the tolls. Story 58. When buying any item that is marked on sale, if you weren't going to buy it in the first place, you are not saving 40%. You are spending 60%. Story 59. Woodworking and gardening are both great hobbies, but it is rare to create or grow something that is cheaper than buying it. I am the woodworker, and my partner is the gardener. We love our hobbies and wouldn't have it any other way. Story 60. Not going to physical therapy when you need it can lead to worse injuries and even the need for surgery. Story 61. Inexpensive tools can ultimately become very costly. You may find yourself replacing a low-quality tool multiple times over the lifespan of a high-quality tool, which means you will end up spending significantly more. Additionally, you will invest a lot of time trying to make it work or fixing the issues caused by the inferior tool. As the saying goes, time is money. Story 62. Buying a fixer-upper house. We bought a custom Cape Cod house in the middle of the COVID pandemic due to limited options in the housing market. I was pregnant, we couldn't stay in our one-bedroom apartment, and we really didn't want to sign another rental lease. My husband is a master electrician and has experience in various types of construction and home improvement jobs, so he knows a lot about the work. If he can't handle it, he knows someone who can. Easy, right? The house was a rental before we purchased it, and it was a bit worn but still livable, so we thought we understood what we were getting into. So far, we've invested close to $35,000 in this house, and these weren't even projects I wanted to prioritize. Every time we save for something like updating the kitchen, another issue arises. Recently, we spent about $10,000 to repair the plumbing because a pipe rusted through in the basement. It's definitely not for everyone, even if you have the skills to do the work. We still want to renovate the house because it's in a great area and it's really charming, but it's going to require much more time and money than we initially anticipated. Story 63. Small light bulbs are for decoration. You can light your 3 by 3 meter room with a single centralized light. Story 64. Not always, but roommates can greatly affect your finances through waste. When I parted ways with my difficult roommate, I discovered I saved about $200 a month from lower bills, less toilet paper usage, and reduced cleaning supplies costs. This was due to excessive use by my roommate, who demonstrated a lack of basic skills. 2 people should not go through an entire bottle of dish soap every week. I also saved money by not needing to replace items as often, as they would break things or accidentally throw away my utensils in storage containers. The list goes on. Do not tolerate difficult roommates. Story 65. Sometimes, buying in bulk to save money can backfire. I have purchased large quantities thinking it would be cost-effective, only to get tired of the product and either force myself to finish it or throw away the leftovers. For example, I bought baking soda that went flat because I only needed it for the festive season. I also bought chocolate chips, as I only baked during Christmas. Cocoa powder has been in my pantry for an extended period and is still fine, but I've been trying to use it up by adding it to my overnight oatmeal. I once bought a giant bag of walnuts that went stale after I used only a quarter of it, realizing later that it was on sale for a reason. Story 66. Trading in your car for a new vehicle every 3 or 4 years can help you save on repairs. Story 67. Cheap tires wear out quickly and cost you more per mile. The same applies to inexpensive chains and sprockets on motorcycles. A more expensive, stronger chain is actually more cost-effective. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.